Today we are going to be working with dip pens. This is what is called a dip pen. These are a couple of the types of dip pens. And I love the line that is made with a dip pen. Yes, you can make lines, of course, and marks with a brush, but there is just something special to me about holding a writing instrument like that and making marks. So here is an example of some work that I was doing in preparation for the workshop. And it just looks like a bunch of lines all over the place and doodles. And for me, that's the way I like to warm up. Hey there, Crazy Junk Art. Welcome in, welcome in. Like I said, I like to do lots of doodles and lines and also do this continuous movement to see how far that pen is going to take me with the ink in it. Because with a dip pen, you're constantly dipping it into your ink and then working with it until the ink runs out and then dipping it back into the ink. And there are several kinds of ink. So we are going to play with some of that today, the different kinds of ink that you can use with your dip pens. And also dip pens come with various nibs to them. So what is the nib? The nib is this top part right here. And this is a nib holder, you can see here. And it has in the top of it some rings. You see the little rings in there? So you take your nib, the nib is curved here so that it will fit inside that ring, and then you push it in. And so it's very easy to change your nibs, and a nib has different shapes and uses for the tips. Some are for comic illustration, some are for writing with really fat letters. If you're wanting to letter, some are very angular, so they're straight across the top. Others of them are round around the top. And so I'm going to show you how those different nibs work during this workshop. Now, before we get started on that and go over the table, I wanted to share with you some of the artwork that I completed from last week's workshop. So last week we were working on, I was showing you how to use stencils. Oh, hi there, Salmon's girl, and how to use masks. So if you recall, I did at the very end, I did a mask with this crown, right? And showed you how you stencil, how you stipple around the mask, and then it looks like this. Well, I used this stencil from Stencil Girl, which is the raven, and I put the raven underneath here, so it looks like the raven is a queen raven, right, wearing a crown. And finish this off with one of my favorite postage stamps. And what is this? A fortune cookie fortune. So this is a card that will be available to for sale during the auction at the end of the show. But I wanted to show you how I completed the piece that we had started last week. In addition, we have here another piece that we started last week. And that was where we were spraying. We were using some of these art sprays by Marabou, and we sprayed through a stencil. Let's see, I should have that stencil right here. Yes, this was a Tim Holtz stencil. I love the organicness of that, the very grungy look, right? And so we had sprayed through there, and then I finished this one off as well with a similar bird postage stamp and a fortune cookie fortune. So this one is also a completed card that's going to be in tonight's auction. And then for this workshop, this is a piece that I created using watercolors and the dip pens. But this is a beautiful, actually vintage dip pen that I got from Critter Chops. So I did want to do a shout out to Critter Chops because I've bought not only this pen from him, but also I have a whole, do you all remember sucrets? You throw it in your mouth, it's a throat lozenge. Well, here's an old sucrets box, and it is full of nibs, like I just explained to you. And so I used one of these special nibs in order to create both thick lines and then switched out the nib, like I showed you a minute ago, to create the thin lines on here. And so this is today's giveaway, is this card. Um, as well as using a similar technique, I made some gift tags this week. So if you've been watching my social media, and I'll show you my information on all my social media and my website soon. But I made a whole sheet of watercolors and then did some of the drawing inside the watercolors. Just something simple, nothing too terribly fancy. But I turned these into gift tags. So I do have gift tags available also to give away. So why don't we actually, while I'm chitter chattering, why don't we go ahead and start a givey for my folks who came in early. And if you are on YouTube, I invite you to come join us on Whatnot, where we have giveaways and the auction after the art workshop. And so all you have to do is scan the QR code at the top of the screen if you're on YouTube, or go into the description. And when you're on the description, you are able to click on the link to come over to Whatnot and join the art peeps over here on Whatnot. Yeah. All right, so we're going to do the first giveaway with my hardcore folks who are already here. Thank you for being here on your Sunday afternoon. All right, so the giveaway is running for 2 tags. I'll just pick 2 tags at random and send those to you. All right, and then this card will be giving away at the end of the workshop. So if you stay through the workshop that we're doing now, then this will be the giveaway. And you know what's really interesting? When I get in the zone and I'm painting, sometimes unexpected things happen. Unexpected things come through. You don't know how to get to painting greatness until you go through what we call the ugly. That's what artists call it. Okay, so you have to go through the ugly. And in order to do that, you have to be found actually painting. So as I was working, and I actually have a big notebook here, and this is where you can see I do more scribbles and experimentation. So I have big books here that's what I do. Actually, there's just all kinds of scribbles and things in this book. And so this is what I was doing, was scribbling with the different nibs of these dip pens to see how they would function, writing with them to see what kind of script I could get from them. And then I did the feathers here, which the feathers are what I would call part of my iconography library, meaning if I need to draw something very quickly, then I draw a feather because it's something that I know. And I live in an area where there are a lot of birds and they're constantly dropping their feathers. So I love bird feathers. That's just something that I enjoy. And so I can whip off a bird feather pretty quickly. And I whipped off these bird feathers. And then what the heck is this thing in the middle here? What I was doing was, before drawing that, was I was trying to come up with words to put in there to create a little poem in between these 2 feathers. And it just was not coming to me, but something told me just draw. And so I ended up drawing this little thing. And if you know what that little thing is, initially I thought, well, maybe it's a chess piece, but maybe not. It doesn't look exactly like a chess piece, but it's what the flow told me to draw. So, and I wouldn't have drawn it if I wasn't in the flow. And if I'm drawing or I'm making a piece of jewelry or something, and an inkwell, yeah, it kind of looks like an inkwell, doesn't it? Very interesting. And what I found is when I'm making jewelry or I'm drawing or painting, and it's something that maybe I don't know, these colors are speaking to me, but I don't like them together. Or I'm being told to draw something like this, but I don't know what it is. Um, you know what I found is that I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for somebody else. So we have to be open to that flow of divine energy in order to have things maybe come through us that aren't for us, they're for somebody else. So I just invite you to be open to that when you are doing artwork, that it doesn't always have to be artwork for you. It may be artwork, color, form, words that are really meant for somebody else that are just happen to be coming through you. Isn't that cool? So that's, but somebody's going to get this at the end of the workshop, and hopefully you're happy with that. Yeah, I love getting free goodies. Okay, and the last thing that I want to show you that was completed from last week's workshop is we were working on black paper. And on the black paper, we were using light colored or opaque paints to go through a different stencil than this, okay? And so this is the piece of finished artwork that I made from that piece of black paper where I was showing you how to put the paint with a palette knife through the stencil. With it was this design, this diamond design. And then of course I put a stamp on it because that's what I do. And there is a finished piece. This is what it looks like when it is framed like this. So it is in an 8x10 mat. I'm not selling it framed, but if you are on Whatnot, I am offering this piece for the first time to my Whatnot peeps. Oh, thank you, Crazy Junk Art. And let's see, someone else said something very nice. Oh, who is that? Salmon's Girl. Okay, Salmon's Girl, you won a couple of gift tags. Okay, and so that painting and a couple of other things like those two cards I showed you already, and then also from the same piece of paper that I just showed you, the 8x10, there was a cutoff, some paper that was cut off. So I actually created also two artist cards. So these are original artwork collectible mini cards. And of course, I had to put a stamp on it. And these will also be available during the auction a little bit later. So again, if you are on YouTube, I invite you to come over to Whatnot and join. And what if you have never been on Whatnot before, they will give you a $15 credit to shop with, which is awesome, right? I remember my first $15 burned a hole right in my pocket, and I got some great stuff for it. So I invite you to come over to Whatnot and join the artist community over here. But this one will be available during the auction, and it will be available matted in either black or white. But I thought I'd show you what it looks like when you put it into a dramatic frame, right? Ay, ay, ay. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead then, and we are going to come over the top of the table and get started with today's workshop. Hold on. Okay, so if you are not familiar with my other social media and my website, here is my Instagram and my Facebook, my website, which is Dietz Art. So that's like the word diet with a Z on the end, art.com. I invite you to go ahead and snap a picture of that if you need it for future reference. All right. And if you are on YouTube, I invite you to come over to Whatnot, and you can find the link in the description of the video, or just scan the QR code that's on the screen over on YouTube. Okay, so today we are talking mark making, but not just any mark making, because hey, I can just grab a marker like this and mark make. These are if you've watched me before, these are my favorite micron pens, right? And so this is a good, heavy black ink, and I love that. Oh, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I can bring you a little closer. Let me do this, do this. Yes, look at that. Oh, okay. Nice. All right. Fantastic. That way I can bring you just a little bit closer. It makes it easier for you to see. So this micron pen here is A permanent pen is something that a lot of artists use, and I have them right next to me at all times on my table over here, with different tip sizes. And so I'm constantly using them. I'm not saying they're not good, they're excellent. But when I'm mark making, I like to have the organicness of a pen with a nib. Okay, these are old fashioned dip pens. So before the ballpoint pen was invented, everybody wrote with a dip pen like this. And so that's why the nibs of the dip pens, this tip, um, became very fancy for different purposes. Some were for architectural purposes, some were for artists, some were for calligraphers. Some of them are thick, some of them are thin. Oh, hold on a second here. Let me make sure I am at the right place on my okay, Psycho Beast, welcome in, welcome in. And Ron Angel, welcome in. Thank you for joining us for the live workshop. All right, I'm just checking YouTube, oops, to be sure that I am not missing any chats. Okay, we are good on YouTube. So I like to peruse social media for inspiration, and I find incredible artists on social media. So this is an artist that I want to share with you, and then I'll bring this up to you so you can take a picture of it and go check her out. It's Lina Forrester. See where it says Lina Forrester. And she does, as do I, various types of artwork, but I really appreciate her artwork like this, which is pure mark making. Now, you could do this pure mark making with a brush. You could do this pure mark making um, with something like a Stabilo Woody that I've shown you before. You know, these big fat oil pastel crayons. You could do it with oil pastels. You could do it with dry pastels. My tool of choice is to do mark making like this with a dip pen. That's the way that I like to mark make. And the flexibility of the various nib types, which I'm going to show you in just a minute, give me different thicknesses of lines. So I can go from super thin lines. The ballpoint pen was invented in 1888. Oh, wow, cool. Thank you, Critter Chops. I appreciate the update. All right. Um, so this one is by the old manor. This one is Cacti in the Desert. And she does say that these are ink paintings. So you can use these black inks, like for instance, the go-to usually is India ink, or sometimes it's called China ink for dip pens. Um, and you can use that same ink either in a dip pen or on a brush. And the interesting thing with the dip pen, with the China ink, and here's another brand of it. They call it Font India Drawing Ink for Fountain Pens. That's the Pelican brand. I have many different brands and many different sizes. I also get from one of the big art stores, I buy their large one. So it's in a bottle this size, like this, and I buy the Indian ink like that. Um, so it appears that she may have used a combination of a brush and possibly a pen as well when she was creating these. Here is more of her artwork here. So that's why I wanted to say that she does different styles, because here she's just using watercolor. And here she's using, whether it's watercolor or acrylic, I don't know. And here is an example of her using the Micron pen that I just showed you to do some scribble marks there. But I love this kind of freewheeling, just sort of whatever comes to mind, drawing. And then this is more of hers. So some of it, she's being very nature oriented, and some of it, she's just completely scribbling some fun things. So I wanted to, and this is her Instagram handle right here, at Lina Forrester. So if you want to check her out there, you'll see these are some of the posts from her page. But you see how even these little minis, you've got some incredible just creativity. And to me, this is a great way to learn how to loosen up is don't worry about what you're creating, just create. All right. And hopefully that's what I inspire you to do when you come to my workshops is just to pick up something and create. Oh, now today we're going to be talking about working with the various types of dip pens. And here you can see, what is that? That's the feather that I had told you is one of my pieces of iconography, meaning you'll find feathers in a lot of my artwork drawings if I'm doing a drawing in the artwork. Um, let's see, what other iconography do I have? I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure I have other things that are my go-tos. Oh, I know one of the things that's my go-to is right here. You've got, I call that a funky flower, and it's a design that I've done for years. And so that's one of my go-to shapes. I also love to just put together some cacti. Remember, it doesn't have to look exactly like a cactus or exactly like a flower when you're doing this play and you're learning your supplies. And that's how you can stumble across maybe something that you didn't even expect in terms of, oh, I like that. And actually, if I had this big piece of paper and I had something on the paper that I really liked, oh, let's see, I like the way this turned out. I can cut this out and glue it into one of my journals that I have for stuff that I like. Because you can see this is a loose page, it's not in a journal. Whereas this other one I showed you earlier, this big honkin' journal like this one has a bunch of pages in it with just scribbles and things that I'm practicing with, and it's all in a nice bound journal. So I like the journals with the rings on them. But this one I was just experimenting with in order to get a feel for on a smooth paper, a hot press paper, it's called, work with the ink pens. And here, this one, I actually did the ink pen work first and then put the watercolor on it. So that is the beautiful thing about using India ink is that when India ink dries, it's permanent, and then you can work back on top of it. That's also true of these Micron pens that I have here. They are permanent also when they are dry. And so they're great for doing design work and then coming back with some watercolor and filling it in. So we're actually going to do that shortly. And I had mentioned, of course, the India ink, but there are a couple other things you want to bear in mind. One is that you can also use any of your watercolor inks. So I've done workshops before with these Colorex fluid watercolors. And so this is going to work in your dip pen exactly like this ink, except that this India ink, when it's dry, is permanent, and this one, when it's dry, is not permanent. But you can have some fun with that, so I'm going to show you that. And another thing to consider is, see this Dr. Martens? I love the P.H. Martens inks, and this one is called what? Pen White. So this is a special ink that's for technical pens and airbrush. So you absolutely can use your dip pens in it. And when is that advantageous? Well, it's advantageous when you're working on a dark surface, right? And you know I love my black. This happens to be black mixed media paper, but I also have black watercolor paper. So they're fantastic for using. The white is fantastic for using on these dark papers. As a matter of fact, I think I have some scribbling here, do I? Let me see. I have right here a whole page of scribbles. So just like I was scribbling on my other spiral bound journal, this is a spiral bound journal of black. And so this is where I go in and test out the nibs of my various dip pens on the black paper, which I adore, with the white ink. Now there's also, I had shown you before, Dr. P.H. Martin's what they call Bombay ink. But notice under here, Bombay says what? India ink. So this is a permanent ink when it's dry. Or it's supposed to be a permanent ink when it's dry. But I can tell you that the white Bombay ink, it's not as permanent as they would like it to be. But the only way you know that is if you try it, right? And then after it dries, you hit it with a little bit of water. And I found that the India ink from Bombay in white still a little bit reactivates. It doesn't completely go solid. Whereas this, which is your black India ink, I'm going to grab a brush and put some water in it. And you'll see, because this is from a couple days ago, I can go over top of it with water and nothing's coming up. So that stays permanent. And the beautiful thing about that means that I can come here and find a transparent watercolor. Let's take a watercolor from Critter Chops. These are handmade watercolors from Critter Chops. And let's see, this looks like Yin Min Blue right here. Let me make sure that I have plenty of water in there. And so the beautiful thing is you can do your design and then come back in with watercolor over top of it later and perfect your design or add color to it after the fact, which is exactly what I did with this flower right here. Drew the flower first in India ink, let it dry, and came back and put watercolor in it. Okay. So let's put those aside for right now. And I wanted to show you a couple of the books that I use. This is, it's called Kelly Creates, and it's Learn Brush Lettering. And it is made for small brush tip pens, but you absolutely can also use it with your dip pens because you're teaching your hand how to move in order to make calligraphy. And I like this one in particular. And when I save the video to YouTube, what I will do is in the comments or in the description of the video, I will put the names and if it's available, the links to these books, okay? Because I have 2 books to share with you. But the cool thing is it talks about the strokes. It shows you the skinny versus the fat part of the strokes. And then it gives you, this is called vellum paper. It's a very smooth paper. But the cool thing is you can see through the vellum. There we go. There's several pages here to play with. So you can see right through the vellum. You might think of it as a tracing paper. And then that means I can put this down on top of the strokes and then I can practice the strokes. There are little arrows that tell you what direction the strokes go in. So a lot of people use dip pens for fancy calligraphy or even just fun, jagged calligraphy, which is what I like to do with it. But this, I found the book very helpful because they give you these vellum sheets in between that you can lay over top and work right on top of in order to get the strokes learned. And then there's a UVW right there. Now, when I do these strokes, when I do the stroke practice, and then I have a beautiful sheet of vellum afterwards, I take the vellum out of the book and then I use that sheet, which if I'm using my permanent India ink, allows me to then use it in my collages. I just tear the pages up and use them in my collages. So I've done double duty, right? I've practiced my my character strokes, my calligraphy strokes, and then I've also used that paper for my collage. So I love the way this book just has you, see there's another piece of vellum there. There we go. But I love the way it shows you the actual strokes, 1, 2, 3 right there. So this is a good one. This is a keeper. And you can always buy calligraphy vellum, it's called, and put it over top of the pages after you've used the pages that were already inside the book. But I just thought it was nice that they provided the vellum in between the pages there. Now this one, I don't even know if you can get this book anymore. So like I said, I will search for it, but I will definitely give you the information in the description of the YouTube video. And it is by Margaret Shepherd. It was actually came out in, I think, 1980, and it's Learning Calligraphy. And this is an excellent book. I mean, look at the beautiful, way she's, well, in this case, typewritten, but she tells you about the different nib types, the angles, because actually when you're holding the calligraphy pen, you don't write all the way over to the side like this. You write at an angle so that your pen nib is at an angle. And that's what it's showing you here. Showing you the correct and the incorrect way to use it. Notice here 90 degrees, 85 degrees, 75 degrees, right? So they're showing you the different ways that you hold the nib in order to get various types of strokes. And that's why I like this book, because she gives you tons of examples and actually shows you in the book. I like to learn from books. I also learn from videos, but for reference to be able to go back to, I find it more convenient as I'm working on something to have a book right next to me and be using that book as reference. So this is the kind of book that I like for that. You can see here, this is Celtic. So Celtic letters and how you would do the Celtic letters. Don't they look cool? I just think they look so cool. And my favorite, of course, is the flourishes that you put at the end of a letter or at the beginning of a letter. I just play around with those. But she gives you excellent, like, look at that. Look at how fun that is, right? To me, lettering is an art form. And so I enjoy it because it's just another type of art. Now, let me see here. I also want to show you, of course, I showed you earlier this kind of handle for the pen. This was the one that if you buy a speedball set, this is a speedball set here. This is actually an old set that I got from Critter Chops. Oh, it's the Speedball Artist Pen Set number 5, but this is a vintage one. And it comes with 2 different pens in it. You can buy just the pen part that are the handle part that holds the nibs very inexpensively. But be aware that there are 2 different types. The one that I have here that I've been using takes a nib that has a little curve in it. So it has a little curve in it like that. And it fits right inside the ring there. Oop, let me do it the other way. I'm right-handed. Okay, so it fits right inside there like that, snugly. Have you seen a double line nib for a dip pen? Yes, I have. I haven't tried one. Good question, Critter Chops. He said, have you seen a double line nib for a pen? I have seen the double line nib. I've seen triple line, quadruple line. I mean, they're very cool pens. I just haven't gotten my hands on one, and I haven't tried one out yet. I haven't been that brave. I've been focusing on learning the different nibs. So here you're going to see each one of these is a different nib style on the end. And each nib has on it a nib code. So let me see if you can see that code. You might not be able to see it, but I'm going to tell you it's code C-3. So that tells you that it's a flat. A C is a flat, and it holds, there's a separate piece right here that sits on top. The gold part sits on top of the silver part. And can you see where I'm separating it right now? So I can separate that. And that's why it holds a lot of ink. It holds a lot of ink in between there. So I like the I like the ones that have this separate piece on top because it helps to, through capillary action, wick up the ink and holds a lot of ink in it. Whereas something like this doesn't have that extra piece, and so it doesn't hold as much ink in it. So besides this one that has the circle around it, that handle like that, there's another kind here that holds what's called a quill nib. So what's the difference between the other nibs and a quill nib? A quill nib is round. So instead of being like a little scoop, it's actually round on top. And so you have to have a smaller handle that round piece will fit inside like this. And these are for doing very precise, scratchy work. You know, if I was working on a piece and I wanted to do some fine cross hatching, or let's say I had somebody's face and I wanted to do the little wispy hairs on it, then I would be looking at the quill pen, this teeny tiny little tip like that. But the difference is the back end of it is round instead of being that sort of half moon shape. All right, let's see, can I get this back in here? Ah, I haven't tried that one yet. I always like using the ones with the half moon like this. Now, the neat thing about this vintage set is inside here, there is a little chart, and the chart shows the different nib styles. So you see there's an A, B, C, D, okay? And so the A's give you a very angular, let me make sure I get that going the right way for you, very angular, very straight, like fill in areas, it's wide. The B's have a circle. Let me see, are the B's? Yeah, the B's have a round, this funky little round tip to them. Can you see that really well in the picture? Yeah, it has a little round tip, and so it gives you very chunky letters. And it's also used to fill in spaces. The next one's the one I use the most, which is the C type. It's flat. And then the bottom one, the D type, is oval. So again, it gives you just a little bit different stroke, and you can use it to fill in a lot of areas. Now, the fattest one is a 0. So for instance, this is a B0, and then it goes up until you hit a 6. So you have a B6, a C6, a D6 here. I think the A's only go up to 5. Because at the end of the 5s of the A's, you're down here on the C's because it's getting narrower and narrower like that. Now, inside here, these are examples, here you go, of the different nib types. So those are the A's. So you see the stroke it makes. Those are the B's. These are the C's. So the C's are cool because they're a little more angular. And then here are the D's that give you those really cool round edges to them as well. And then they give you samples here in this particular set of the different types of fonts. And they actually tell you, for instance, here, single stroke Roman style letters. And you're going to use the C type nib for it. Okay. So I hope this is not too technical. Oh, Critter Chop says he'll send me one of the double lines with my stuff. Thank you so much. You are so generous. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'm going to show you something that hopefully will blow your mind. This is an artist named Earl Horter. Very, very, very famous for his pen drawings using dip pens. This is a cathedral. It was the last pen drawing, or one of the last pen drawings that he did. Incredible detail, all done with a dip pen. Whoa! And so it shows in here the different types of textures that he was getting using cross hatching, stippling, which means making little dots. This says, hey, you can loosen up your drawing with a dip pen here as well. So thank you, Critter Chops, for this really cool set that I was able to buy from you, because I love the paperwork that came in it. It's very helpful to tell you about the different nibs. So we're actually going to do this, right? Let's do it. And afterwards, I'll show you some various types of watercolors. We're going to start with the India inks, and then we're going to go into showing you what to do with watercolor inks. Let me clear this out. Actually, okay, I need paper towels. You might hear something crash over here because my paper towels have something on top of them. Okay, come on. Oh, oh my gosh. Hey there, a Flirty Bird Vintage. Welcome in, welcome in. Okay, so let's do some drawing with the various nibs, and I'm going to show you how to clean, well, how to start the nib, how to work with it, and then clean it, because it's helpful. And I go quickly between nibs from one to the other, especially if you're doing work where you have various line sizes. Actually, you can even have multiples of these handles, and then that way you can put your favorite nib sizes in these various handles and always have them available. That can be handy as well. Now I'm going to use one of my wooden, on my website I had shown you earlier, deetsart.com. I have items similar to this. So this is a brush holder, and I'm going to put that over here next to me so that I can have my brushes, or have my pens sitting in the brush holder and keeping the ends off of the table. So on my website there, if you go to the heading that says supply links, you can find some of these art supplies that I'm showing you here during my shows, because what I offer on Whatnot and what I show on YouTube is the artwork that I make using these beautiful tools. But if you want to get these tools like this palette paper or this watercolor paper, you can find all of that on my website. All right, so this is a my workhorse watercolor paper, which if you've been with me, you've seen it over and over and over again. That's the Canson 140-pound watercolor paper. Now there's a bit of texture to this watercolor paper. All right, if you want a smooth watercolor paper, which some people prefer a smooth watercolor paper, then I'm going to show you that. The one that I use is the Fabriano. Different companies will make what they call a hot press. That's smooth. A cold press, which is the one that I just showed you from the Canson. And then some of the brands also have a rough watercolor paper that has a lot of texture to it. So this is called Hot Press Studio Watercolor. And the cool thing about this paper is it's very smooth. So a lot of people, when they are doing work with dip pens, they actually like the smooth paper. So maybe we'll take a piece of the smooth paper out of here. That is not that paper. Okay. This is beautiful, same 140-pound thickness. So it says right here, 140 pounds, 300 GSM, and it's a very smooth paper. So a lot of people who do drawings with their dip pens, they like to work on a smooth paper. I like to work on any paper because I'm a messy artist. I tend not to want to be precise. I actually invite imperfection in my artwork. But most people like to use this very smooth paper when they're working with their dip pens. So let's take this little box right here. And wow, this one is a big, big flat tip. It should be a C. Yep, C0. The one that I work with most of the time is a C3. That's this little one right here. But I'm going to show you this this handle. This is a vintage handle. It's shellacked wood, and it has a little bit of a different top to it for you to shove the nib down into. So let's take this one out of here, and it's very like it holds that nib really well. Okay, so I'm going to put my C3 there, and it has little, like this little flange right here, and you're actually going to take the curved part of your nib and you're going to put it in between the back portion and the flange that's sitting up here. So like this, and then shove it in. Okay, well, there we go. So now that's in there, very secure. And actually, if you find it, when I first got this pen, this holder from Critter Chops, I did not know what the heck, how to put the nib in. So I went to the internet and I discovered somewhere along the line how to do it. So I made a YouTube short that shows you this flange and then how to insert the nib. So if you ever forget, you can go look at my YouTube shorts and you'll find it. Now, if it's the first time that you're using a nib, there are a couple of ways to prepare the nib for drawing. And the reason that it's important to prepare the nib for drawing is that the nibs are manufactured with oil on them when they come out of the factory to keep all of the metal parts fresh. And when you receive it, of course, if you're putting it into a water-based ink, it's going to repel and it's not going to work properly. So there are a couple of ways that you can prepare the nib. One is you can use a lighter. I don't have a lighter in my studio right now, but you can use a lighter and then run the nib over that flame in order to burn off the oil. Another thing you can do, which is pretty funny, but you can take a white potato and you can shove the nib into the white potato, and the starch and acid from the potato will prepare the nib for you. I know it sounds really weird, but hey, it works. And the other way that most people use, because they don't always have a potato or a lighter on hand, is they spit on it. So, I mean, you take your chances if you put it in your mouth, but you know how it is. Use what works, right, Salmon's Girl? I wanted to show you the couple of different things that I know do work. Uh, so you would take some spit and you would put it on there and then wipe it off. Now, I've also seen some people say that they use rubbing alcohol and they wipe it off with rubbing alcohol as well, because rubbing alcohol dries very quickly. I like the spit and the potato. Those are my favorites anyway. And that's why I have a shriveled up little potato sitting on my desk, right? Like, what the heck? Is that an art supply? Yeah. You can do a lot more with a potato than just what I just showed you for art, but that's for another show. Okay, so this is a nice big honkin' top. And let's talk about the ink. What I do is I could shake this up and then take the ink directly from the jar by dipping the pen into there. However, what I find works better is to have a little container. So this is just a little tiny container that I got. You can see I took it out of this palette set right here. This is just an inexpensive palette set, but it has the little jars in it. So one of the jars I put my India ink in. And the reason that you want to do that is that it keeps it fresh longer. You don't have your whole jar open for a long period of time. So it keeps your actual jar that you have the ink in fresher longer. But also, as you're drawing, it's helpful to have one hand hold your ink and the other hand dipping the one that you write with or draw with, because that way you can move around your artwork like this and your ink is close to your pen. If you have an inkwell, and let's say the inkwell is sitting over here, and you dip into your inkwell and you're working on drawing down here, that's a lot of opportunity for a drip to happen. Okay, so that's why you put the ink in a separate little container like this. Now, what I do is I dip it in. So I dip my pen in, and then I turn it to the back, and I rub off the excess from the back, the top of the back. All right, and I find that that really helps to keep the excess that would normally beat up on the end here. It just helps to get rid of that little bit of excess. And then this is one of the big ones, so I'm going to hold it. I can do it flat like this. Oh, let's see if we can get this one going, because this is a fresh one. This one is going to go. So see that beautiful thick line right there? Wow, that's if I'm going, because it's a big tip, I'm going straight down with it. Now, if I were going to do lettering with it, I would hold it at the angle instead. So like, for instance, let's put more ink on it. Thin line. Oh, beautiful thick line. And there's the letter H. So because it is broad at the tip, if I'm putting it on at an angle like this, ooh, there we go. Because it's new, I have to dip it more often. I can get a thin angle like this, where I'm holding it at 45 degrees, or I can get a thick angle if I'm holding it closer to straight. This one is. They have to get broken in. So what I recommend that you do is when you first use the pen, you just doodle on a piece of paper like this with it before you go to your final piece that you're going to be working with, because you need to break in the nib if it's a new nib. Oh, but I look at the thick to thin, back to thick to thick. Oh, that is just so lovely. There we go. Let me bring it up close. So I love the way that just by moving your arm and changing the angle of this, you can get various shapes. So let's see if I want to do let's do, now here is the letter C. So often you will do one stroke and then go back and put on your little flourishes. Even a flourish like this, just, oops, see, it's not, it's not holding as much yet. So even a flourish like this, for instance, on that C right there. And so when you see beautiful calligraphy, often it wasn't done in a smooth, uh, smooth path. Often it's done in little tiny sections where maybe you do the flourish first. So let's say that I'm doing, oh, it's running out of ink fast. Let me just bring this up here. Come on, you can do it. Let me get more, load more ink in there. So bring it up, do an L. So this one, for some reason, is not holding very much ink, which is weird because it's much bigger. Maybe it's just emptying faster. But you've got your flourishes going at the beginning and your flourishes going at the end. Let's use one of the smaller, this one, which is one of my go-tos. I think we'll actually, this gives you a much smaller line because it has a teeny tiny little tip to it. But let's do it's broken in. So what you're going to see is you're going to get a nice continuous line. And you're having to restart often at a certain place. So that is my big L. Now, that's if you're doing calligraphy, but that's Um, Often not what I'm doing because I'm an artist. Most of the time, I am not doing calligraphy. Actually, let's take this. I'm just going to take this now to clean it to switch to another one. So I do try to clean these before I go to the next one. And I try to get as much ink out on my paper towel. And then I dip it into the water. And then I take off as much more as I can. And I just keep dipping it and removing it the best I can. Now, it helps to use a toothbrush. So I have an old toothbrush here. And so normally I would have a little bowl of some sort or a plate. And then I work down inside here to get the ink that's in between those two parts. Can you see these two parts here? I want to clean down inside there like that. Okay. And then wipe it off. There's a little bit I can see down inside here. If you don't do the cleanup right away, then they do get gunky. And some of the nibs, let's see if you can see it. This one splits. There's a split there and a split there. There are actually two splits on the top of this nib. Let me see if I can get it in the light there. And so you don't want ink to get stuck down inside there, which is why if I have a nib that has those cuts in it, I make sure that I clean it real quick like before I go to the next nib. So let's pull this nib out. Come on. One thing I love about this pen is it holds the nibs really well. And one of the things I don't like about the pen is it holds the nibs really well. Right? Okay, there we go. So I got that one out. And that's why, hey, have yourself a whole bunch of these pens and then just stick the different nibs in them so you don't have to take it out very often. So here I'm going to put my favorite one in there, which is well broken in, which is my C3. And so the C looks like what? The C is the one that's flat on top with the little cuts in it, just like the big one we were just using, which was a C0. This one just means the C3 is a little skinnier. So this is the one that I find I have the most success with, this particular size, to where it tends to go longer. Let's see if it makes a, if it works or not. So I'm going to go. And then you see how this one's going and it's not stopping. And there's a whole word that I was able to write there. That's because this nib is well broken in, and the other one I was just using for the first time. So I love the way that a dip pen nib pen writes. It is just, let's see, the Lazy Fox. What is it? The Lazy Fox. Well, it's the Lazy Brown Fox, right? Did what? Jumped over the log. So I'm still writing with one dip right here. The Lazy Fox jumped over, still going, just beginning to run out right here. Okay, so that's why it really helps when the nib is broken in over the, let's see, the Lazy Fox jumped over the, I'm going to say brown log since I left brown off. So just so fun to write with, and you get these very flowy. Does everybody know how to do cursive writing still? Because that's what these are very beautiful for. Now, that's not to say that you can't do the block lettering. I absolutely can. So let's do an A, B, a C, a D, right? So you can certainly do your block letters with it as well. But my favorite way to use them is to do this scribble. So to scribble along, and then it gives you a beautiful look. And another thing is sometimes as you're using it, it will spurt, and then you get, let me see if I can make it spurt. Nope. Yeah, a little bit. Sometimes when you get down to toward the end of the ink, it will spurt, and then you get this beautiful spurt across your paper, which if you're doing somebody's wedding invitation, you don't want it. But because I'm using it in a very artistic way, um, I like the fact that it's unpredictable. Okay, so here we go. Now, what I like to do with these pens, because I'm an artist, instead of doing calligraphy with them, is I like to draw with them. So let's come here, and I'm going to do a sea urchin. All right. So sea urchins are cool because they have lots of little nubs on them. So I'm going to start out by drawing the sea urchin. I went to the Bahamas on a boat before with my ex-husband and my children, and we had a great time in the Bahamas. And you could pick up the dead sea urchins with, of course, all of their little pins that come out of them had fallen off already. So they have all of these incredible little nubs. They have, now what I'm working with right now is a very wide line. So do you see the wide line with the C3? And the beautiful thing is, of course, when this is dry, the ink will be permanent. The ink is not going to move. Hallelujah. And then I switch from the wide nib, the C's, to this really teeny tiny nib here. And then I go in and I put my details, and the details in this case are quite thin. So let me bring that up to you in just a second. And I love using this thin tip also for dots. So do you see the thin and the dots? This is the perfect pen for that. So let's do this. I'll put some more dots here. I could also make little round dots and make them bigger as they go down. Why not? And then let's just do a bunch of dots here. But because this pen also is very well broken in, it holds a lot of ink in it. So we'll do this, and then we'll start making some circles. So there's even the crow quill, the one that I showed you that's round on the end, has an even teeny tinier tip to it. So there you go. You can see how the detail work is going in with this pen. And I'm doing this so that it can dry. And then I will we'll use some watercolor on it. I'm gonna do this. Oh, and it just, y'all try it. If you haven't tried it, will the nibs break or become unusable? Salmon's Girl asks. Yes, they do break and they do become unusable. Of course, if you don't clean them, they become unusable faster than if you do the right thing and you clean them in between each time. That's why I like to clean them each time I'm using them or each time I'm switching to another nib. I don't like to, I have in the past just left them sitting in the water like that. But just like it's not good for your brushes to do that, it's also not good for your nibs to do that as well. Okay, let me see if I can finish this up just a little bit more and put more of those little nubs across the top, because there are bunches of nubs across the top. Now, while the paint is wet, meaning while the ink is wet, I can actually go in with a brush while the ink is still wet and get the ink to run. So can you see the ink running right there? Oh, that is so fun. I actually love the look of the runny ink. But the part that's already dry down here did not run. The little bit of gray that's here is from up here where I pulled it down. So this part was already dry and it didn't run, but this part that was still wet gave me this really cool gray halo. So that's a fun thing to try when you're working with it. See, some of it's still wet and some of it's not. So we're just giving it a little bit of a gray background there to that one. And then once that grayness dries, that will be permanent because this India ink is permanent when it's dry. Okay, so this one, when I'm finished with it, same thing, I dip it in the water and then I clean it like this. And I wipe it as best I can. You can see it's black from having lots of ink on it, the tip. When it started out, it was silver, believe it or not. So what I'm doing is I have my water here and I am just swishing it around in there and then doing this. Now, water can get caught down inside here, those little rings where you had shoved that tip into. And so it can be helpful to pull this out and dry off the bottom of it and then leave them separated so that this can dry out as well if you're done with your session. Okay. Yes. Critter Chop said, make sure that these are dry after you're done, otherwise they will rust. And this one actually is all rusty down here at the bottom. And the reason is because most of the time it's the only one that I use in this handle. And most of the time I leave it in here and I don't take it out. So the fact that I've left it in there and it's still wet down in there has caused it to rust. But it's the one, my workhorse, the one that I use the most, right? So that was using those dip pens. Let me see. Okay, so that's using the permanent ink. That's this India ink. Let's do it down here with watercolor ink, and I'll show you what I do with that. So let me, I'm looking for the lid to that. It couldn't have gone far. There it is. Okay, so I want to close. I accidentally left this little jar open overnight recently, and it crusted all over on top. So if you can, remember to put the lid back on it. Okay, now let's do watercolor. And what I'm going to do is, my favorite color of watercolor is sanguine or sepia. Sepia is a little bit darker than the sanguine. The sanguine is a little bit redder. They're both beautiful, right? Another nice color to use is this one, which is Payne's Gray, because Payne's Gray is kind of a purpley blue, black, and not just black by itself. So I love working with the Payne's Gray. So we'll use both of them. What the heck? We'll use them both. And now what am I going to do with these? I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them in a small jar. So it's helpful when you have these little jars to write on them. Usually I'll write on the lid and say what it is. Because if it's watercolor, of course, you want to know whether it's watercolor, which is rewettable, or whether it is India ink, which is not rewettable. So I'm going to take two of these out. I'm sure I have one for the sanguine around somewhere because I always use the sanguine, but for right now, we're going to make a new one. So I take this little jar, swirl around this is liquid watercolor. So it's what's called fluid watercolor. And I'm going to put some of it in here. And I need enough of it in here. I need it to come up the side of that little bottle enough so that it will submerge the end of the dip pen in it when I'm using the dip pen. Okay, there we go. Nice. That's why I use these little jars. Can you imagine if you had a bigger jar? I mean, you'd have to fill it with this whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment. I'm going to put the sanguine here so I know what's what. And I'm going to put the Payne's Gray over here. But this is the beautiful thing, y'all, of working with the liquid watercolors is you have all these different colors at your disposal. You can use, and I've shown you this before in previous classes, you can use the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay ink, and it's a calligraphy ink, so you can use it with all these nibs. It comes in tons of colors as well, and it dries permanent. So this one is the one where I showed you the white India ink from Bombay. Well, the Bombay ink comes in a whole range of colors, and this is made for you like this black India ink, but it is made to go down on your work and dry permanent, but you can use it with your dip pens, which is fabulous. Look, see how this one's so black because I use it all the time. Let me just make sure. Oh, I didn't clean it. See here, it's a good thing that I swished it before I went into the watercolor. Another good reason to put the dip pen ink in a separate container, right? Because if I hadn't realized that I had used it with the permanent ink and I dipped it into here, I could contaminate my my whole jar there. Okay, so here we go. This is the Sanguine. You know what? I'm going to start out with the Payne's Gray. So again, I'm just dipping it in there. Doing that with the back to get the excess off. And then let's see, sea urchin. Come on, sea urchin. We kind of go like that. And dip it again. See, I'm wanting to reach for it because I like to have it right next to me as I'm doing the work. And this gives me the thicker lines. Lovely. Let me push this up because you probably are having trouble seeing it. Yeah, okay, now it's more toward the center. Then I'll put my little, they actually have these really cool little teardrops up here. And then we'll put the lines in here. So we've got the thicker lines like this. All right. So that's using the C3 to get the thicker lines. Now, either before it's dry or even after it's dry, watercolor will reactivate. Let me use a little smaller brush for this. But what I can do is I can go in here with the watercolor brush and just pick up, let's say on the inside. I want it to bleed to the inside instead of bleeding to the outside like I did there. So I'm just picking up the little bit of wet paint, oops, and I'm letting it bleed inside toward the middle. I don't want to have too much water on my brush, but just enough to get it to bleed inside. Okay. So what I love about this technique is that you can have lines and then you can soften the lines because you're working with watercolor and it'll reactivate. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah. So it's running. Even what was here on the sides right here is running. So you can get it to give you these really cool fuzzy wuzzy effects like that, right? Now let's put some of the Sanguine in there. I'm going to use the detail pen to do that. I'm going to go in with some dots and some circles. There we go. I love using the this detail brush. And one of the things you can do with the, look at me, I'm calling it a brush. It's a pen, right? And then let's just do plain dots here. And then I'm going to do some cross hatching. So I'm going to say, oh, let's say that there's a, the light source is coming from over here. So I'm going to create some lines and a little cross hatching here in order to create a sort of a shadow. And then I'm going to hit that with a brush. So let's hit it with a brush like this. Now I'm going to clean this. Let me wipe it, put it in the water, clean it so I don't double dip like I was just about to do with the other one. All right, let's grab this. And while this is still a little bit wet, oh yeah. Oh, you just get yourself a little bit of that. So do you see how the pen actually scratched the paper and left the indents? So you have a little bit darker where you scratch the paper, but then where you, of course, because it's watercolor, when you picked it up with a wet brush, it spread out and gives you this really beautiful diffused look. So let's do it on the inside here. I'm just going to do that. Let's go straight down, and I'm going to go straight down here, straight down here, just to show you what it can do. There we go. And now, because it is watercolor, I can just play around with it, continue to activate it. Whereas once this one was dry, it was permanent. I can't move that gray around anymore. But with this brown here, the sanguine, and with the gray, I can continue to move it with water. Let me try moving. So I'm going to bring this up close to you so you can see. See there how it diffuses? And then here, I'm going to go back in with a little bit of water. Now here's where you can use like bring in your detail or your smaller brushes. And so if I just wanted to be a little more precise here with softening the edges here, I'd just bring a smaller brush in. So that's softening those edges. Now that one is dry, so it's taking a little bit more work to get it to release the paint. So if you want to be a little more precise with where the paint gives you the diffused look, wait a little while so that this liquid watercolor can dry, and then go in and soften the edges, because then you'll have a more controlled softening. When it's fresh, you get what I call an explosion of the paint moving around. Now down here, this liquid watercolor, I want it to be darker down here. So I'm going to use the detail brush, and let's do a little more scratchies here. I'm going to add a little bit more scratchies along the bottom because I want it to get darker. Okay, and then I'm going to hit it with a brush, a wet brush, like this. And then I'm going to get more paint moving, or more watercolor moving. And I can even, because it's just watercolor, right? This is liquid watercolor. I can dip my brush into it, and then I can do more refining with the brush. So you can do a combination of the dip pen and your brush work with these liquid watercolors as well. You can dip your brush into the India ink, this black India ink. Just remember that the India ink dries permanent. Just remember. So here I'm going to use my brush. Oh yeah, I have it like all over my hands, typical. So I'm going to bring it in here. I'm going to create my little shadow, right? And while it's still wet, I can work with it. But once it's dry, it won't move anymore. There we go. So just dropped in a shadow, just putting a brush right into the India ink. So don't be afraid to use the India ink on brushes. Just realize that, like acrylic paint, it's permanent when it's dry. So don't leave it on your brush. You want to make sure that that brush gets rinsed out right away. Now, what happens if some of the paint goes somewhere where you didn't want it to? Like there, where it dripped off of the end of the pen. And what I'm going to show you is I have a special brush for that. So let me see if I can find it. My scrubber brush. So I have this special brush from Princeton. Hold on a second, let me get my air conditioner off because it sounds like my headphones ran out. So hold on a second. You should be able to still hear me, but I don't want you to have to listen to the air conditioner. So let's see here. Okay, we're good. This is they call it a blender, and it has a stiff tip to it like that. It also has an angled end so that you can use it when you're doing watercolor to scratch in to your watercolor. But with this stiff top to it, what you can do, you get most of the water out. So there's only a little bit of water in, and then you scrubby scrub. This is where having a good paper is really, really important. And also having a clean paper towel helps too. You're going to scrub, scrub, scrub to get that those little bitty drips. If you care about it, you know, when I'm working, I'm doing multiple layers and mixed media. So the fact that there's some extra paint on there does not matter at all for what I do. But if you get a little bit of paint somewhere you didn't want it, you're going to need one of these little scrubber brushes. And I have brushes in my on my website under supplies, but I'm not sure if I have this particular brush. So I will look tonight. And if I don't have this particular brush, I'll make sure that I add it for you. But it's the what they call a blender. And it helps to take out those little unwanted dots of color. Now, it didn't completely come out, and that's because I'm using very concentrated inks here. But if you're using regular watercolor, this comes out really well. All right, let's put some watercolor on this sea urchin right here because this part up here is already dry. So let's do that. This is one of my watercolor palettes. And let me show you the different kind of watercolor paints that I use. I tend to like to use watercolor paints that come in a tube because for me, they're just so dang juicy. You can also use watercolor, though, that comes in pans. These were made by Critter Chops, and his formula is also pretty juicy. So different from if you get manufactured paints, which tend to be a little more dry and so that they travel well. And the dry ones, they just there's not as much brilliant color I find that comes up with the dry ones in the pans than if you have juicy paints like these handmade paints that you can even see the shininess on the top, and tube paints. So this is one of my favorite brands, the Holbein watercolors. And you can see they come in little tubes like this. So this is a set of 6, very reasonably priced. You can find online. You may even be able to find them with other sellers here on Whatnot. This is the 12 set. If you just want to dip your toes, try the 6 set. But if you are ready to jump in, definitely get the 12 set because you have more color options for color mixing. And then if you don't want to jump into the tubes, Daniel Smith has these color, they call this one watercolor confetti, 36 dots of watercolor. So this is a great way to try watercolors because there's a lot of paint right there on that dot. And you get it wet and then you can see what the color is on the watercolor paper. And you certainly can pick, there's plenty of paint here for you to pick up and use in your paintings. And they give you some shimmer paints here. So I really like the idea if you're starting out to just get yourself something like this, which are watercolor dots that are big enough that you can actually do a whole painting with the amount of paint that's here. So that's a great way to kind of break into watercolor. And Daniel Smith in their sets gives you beautiful a lot. There are 36 dots of color, so lots of colors to try out there. If you want to look at buying individual tubes, a lot of companies have what's called a dot card. So this is a card, also by Daniel Smith, and this is 66 different colors on here. And yes, you could do a painting with them, but there's not nearly as much paint here on this dot as there was on the confetti dots here. Um, but it is a way, if you want to just get a feel for the paints and their colors before buying a whole tube, you can get these what are called dot cards and then try out and see what the colors are like and then buy a whole tube. So let's see, I bought the Cascade Green, this one right here. After I tried this, I said, "Ooh, okay, I want to get myself some of that Cascade Green." And then I knew what tube to go buy because I had seen the color here on the dot card. All right, and another thing that can be helpful to have watercolor wise is watercolor pencils. So this came from like an Office Depot or something like that. Again, you can check with people that are selling on Whatnot, and you may be able to find. Oh, hi there, Sound Design Joe. He commented pomegranate. So I'm afraid I don't know when you put your comment out there, but perhaps you were talking about some of these incredible colors that came from these watercolors. Like this color right here would be great. Or did you think this looked like a pomegranate maybe? These are sea urchins, but very loose. So these are actually from a big office type store, but they are Stadler is a very good brand from Germany, and these are watercolor pencils. So you could certainly use the watercolor pencils to go in, and let's say I wanted to do something else with the brown here. I could use the watercolor pencil here to say perhaps put in a shadow, and then hit that watercolor pencil with a little bit of water like that. That's what they're made for. You do your watercolor pencil drawing, and then you can just use a brush with a little bit of water to spread these around. Let me see if I let's put this color out here. So this is the watercolor pencil, and then if I use some watercolor with it, you can see that the water activates the watercolor pencil. So that's a great way if you want to, let's say you're doing urban sketching and you have a little container like this of your India ink, you have one of your dip pens, and then you bring your watercolor pencils. You could do some amazing urban sketching just with that little tiny kit like that. And then you can buy what are called travel journals that have, you want real watercolor paper, helps a lot, as opposed to just a journal that you would write in. You want a journal that you would paint in for your urban sketching. And then that would be a quick and easy way to do some urban sketching where you can get watercolor effects, but you don't have to bring a whole set of watercolors with you. Now for these were tube watercolors, which is my favorite way to use watercolors. Although we can take some of Critter Chop's colors here too. Let me see. I think this is like a nice brown. Yep. So I could use Critter Chop's colors here in the pan and come in here and drop in some warmth. If it's too much, you just pick it up with your paper towel. There we go. So that's quick and easy way to do it there. Now, because this is watercolor here, the ink was watercolor, they're going to blend when it gets wet again. But because up here, this is not watercolor, I can drop colors in here and it's not going to move at all. The color's going to stay. So let me take this one, and I love the this sort of cerulean blue or cobalt blue color right here. So let's take that one and drop that in here. So I love doing drawings and then bringing my watercolor in on top. In general, watercolors are transparent. Some are a little semi-transparent, meaning that they're a little thicker. This one's actually a little bit thicker than a total transparent. But depending on how much water you put in it will determine how transparent it is. So the more water you use with watercolor, that's the trick with watercolors, learning how much water to use. Then you can get and another nice thing with watercolor is you can layer the colors. So if I put on my blue like I just did here, and then I determine later that it needs to be darkened a little bit, I can come back in with my darker blue. Because this is transparent, I can put my darker blue on top of it and darken the color in certain areas. So I build up my watercolors from the lightest color to the darkest color on top. So the first colors that go down are just what are called washes of light color, and then the heavier colors come up later. Let me see. Now, one of the things I love about watercolor is the way you can blend colors. So let's say some of this green right here that's just gorgeous, but I want to put some blue in with it. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this blue and give myself sort of a blue-green like. So see how quickly I was able to create my blue-green and bring that in here. The only thing with mixing colors is then if you need more later, you have to remember what you did. And sometimes that can be a challenge. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit more in there. But this gives you the idea that you can very quickly, after doing a drawing with your India inks, you can go back in and start dropping in color. And I'm going to bring that closer to you right here. So you can start putting in color and you don't have to worry about that black or that gray there moving any at all. Once it's dry, it's permanent. And it's okay with these India inks and the watercolor inks to use a heat tool. So next to me on my desk here, I have a heat tool. So if I wanted to dry the color like this, then I could just use my heat tool to make that happen. It is okay to do that. All right, so that's if you're doing your drawing first and then putting color down. But you can also put color down first and then do your drawing on top. And that's what I did here with this drawing of the feathers, is I put the color in the background first, and then I did the drawing on top. So let me show you that right now. What I've done here is I pre-colored with watercolors. This is a piece of watercolor paper that I have linked on the supply links on my website. So this is my favorite, like just all around experimentation, use it with my students, use it for myself. This is actually the paper that often goes on to these greeting cards. And because it's heavy enough, it can take mixed media as well as maybe just watercolor and ink. And it's 135 pounds. This one happens to be a 6x9, which means I can cut it in half. And then I have 2 pieces for my greeting cards. Or you can also buy them like this. Same paper by Jack Richardson. Watercolor postcards in this case. So it's already cut to 4x6. And it's still the same 135-pound paper. Excellent for doing mixed media or watercolor. So here I have a few shapes, and now I can go back over top of that with my ink. So let me see, what do I want to do? I'll use the thicker one of my inks. Now I'm not going to open this over top of that because I could get spatter on it. I'm famous for that. I am famous for getting spatter everywhere. Okay, there we go. See, and I'm getting ink everywhere too. It's just, it is what it is in an active studio, right? So what I'm going to do here is this. Remember, this is the pen, the nib, the C3 that I use all the time. So that, let me just, I'm going to start with this, and then I'm going to show you the shapes of some of the other nibs, like what it gives you. And then we'll come back to this for the detail. So let's say that I'm going to do some leaves here. So I'm going to do a leaf. I love doing the watercolor first and then coming back over top of it with the permanent ink. I think it is so fun to do. There we go. And so you can just draw right on here with your, see how easy that is? And it's very bold. It goes over top of the watercolor beautifully. Oh, more black ink everywhere. Now you can have a separate piece of paper. Often I just have little tiny pieces of paper off to the side like this that I use as what's called a blotter. So when I first dip into the ink like this, I might need a blotter to be sure that it doesn't, there's not too much coming off the end, and it's going before I bring it to my artwork surface. Let's do this one here. These pens tend to work better if you're pulling down with them rather than pushing up. But you can push up. It's just when I push up, I find that's when I get the remember I said that you can get spurts? Let's try to get a spurt. Let's see if it'll do it if I'm pushing it hard up. Nope, this one didn't spurt. Oh well. Here I was trying to get a spurt and I couldn't get it. And other times when I'm not trying to get a spurt, then I get it. Okay, so here we're just drawing a cute design on top. And then once it's dry, I will come back in with the small pen and do the details. All right, one more. And then we'll move to looking at the different tips. There we go. Okay, so that is first layer, and I would put that aside and let that dry before trying to put the details in with this smaller nib. But before we do that, I've got my water over here. Now I'm going to go ahead and close up these watercolors because I showed you how to, if I wanted to, once I'm done, I could take this watercolor ink and I could just pour it right back inside this bottle and rinse this out, and it would be good to go for my next color. Okay, and let's do the Payne's Gray here. Their Payne's Gray, the Pebeo Payne's Gray, looks a little purplish, which is cool. Cool, I like it. Okay, so let me show you some of the different nibs here, the shapes from the nibs. Or move that up. For some reason, I ended up with paint all over it. All right, this one's the easiest one to put the nibs in and out of. So you saw the C. Now what I want to show you is the B. Because it has this really funky, can you see it? It has this round tip to it. And then it's an angled, see the angle? And I looked at that and I said, what the heck is that? What does that even mean? How does that even work? Okay, so I'm going to show you. So we're going to do the same. We're going to dip it in to the ink here, fill it up, get rid of the excess. Now, instead of doing it on the side at a typical angle that you would, see here, I'm going to get more of a straight line. That's if I'm doing it on the very edge right here and not taking advantage of the round top. Now, if I want to take advantage of the round top, I can get this super cool rounded thick line. You see that? So like for instance, C-O-M I'm doing comic. I see. So this is how you get these really super thick rounded edges. So let's say that I had drawn a building. So let me just use the edge of it and kind of draw out a building. And now I want to go in and I want to fill part of that building in. I can use this. Let me blot it on my blotter paper. And I can use this to go in and very quickly cover a large area. So see how I'm doing the windows here? Look at that. So it serves two purposes. It covers a large area very quickly when you have that big rounded top to it. But then it also gives you incredible round letters. I need more nibs, right, Salmon's girl? I know. I was like, this round nib is so freaking cool. Are you kidding me? This is awesome. So, and I knew I had already used it, so it was somewhat broken in. Look, I'm getting paint on my arms now. That's the way it is. Again, let me write the word comic here so you can see. And I'm using the tip, that big round tip. I'm holding my hand up so it's flat with the paper. And I can get these incredible rounded letters. What? Let me do the M kind of like this. Oh, I'm running out. Because of course it's large, it's running out faster. But it gives you these incredible cool round letters. What? Comic like that. So don't be afraid to, it looks bizarre, but don't be afraid to try it. And that's the trick with the one with the round nib, is to hold it up and press and let it come out, and you can get that beautiful rounded edge. Now let's see if I can find a see, these are again the B's. This is a B0. That's what I was just using. And I want to see if I can find a D in here. There may or may not be a D. Now there are different sizes of these B's. There's a smaller B, so we'll try that one. There's a C. Ooh, this one is the B. Oh, we'll have to try the crow quill here in just a second too. This is that that funky little round one, right? And oh, here's a beautiful one. Let me put my hand up there, see if you can see it a little bit better. So they're made by different companies. This is the R. Eastman, I believe it's called, company. Makes these like beautiful shaped skinny ones for detail work. And then these other ones that I've been showing you are by Speedball, which used to be called Hunt. And it says right down here, the manufacturer. Okay, so I'm not finding I'm not finding inside here like a B. I just have C's and B's. I don't even see any A's. Well, I guess whoever used these that I got from Critter Chops, their favorites were the comic ones. Let's see, B's. Yeah, B's and C's. Okay, let me look in the Speedball set here. So this will be the first time, drum roll. This will be the first time that I will have used this, which is the crow quill. It's called the teeny tiny one. That's round on the bottom, and you have to use a special pen to hold it. So let's see what this does for us. It probably gives me like super detail scratchies. Oh, actually, it gives me quite a nice line. Wow. Okay, it actually gives me a pretty big line there. You see that? And they also come in different nib sizes. The tip there will come in different sizes for like super hyper detail. They call them extra fine lines. So let me just write a word here. So this is just going to be thinner. That's all. Thinner, thinner, thinner. It wants to catch on this paper because this is the textured paper instead of the smooth or vellum paper. L, L, O. So it works the same as this one right here, except that it's a little bit tinier. So here you go. There's the word hello. But you definitely want to use this crow quill, this type, on a smooth paper because it keeps catching on this watercolor paper. Okay, and let's see what we have here. Oh, there is a D over here. Okay, so the D has an oval on the end instead of a circle. So let's try the D here, and I'll show you the tip. Let me see how this is in here. It's just stuck in there. So instead of the top here being a circle, it's an oval. So let's try that one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it into here. This is where that big round B was. So depending on what part of your painting you're doing or drawing, sometimes you want thick lines and sometimes you want thin lines. Okay, here we go. See, this is typical for me after a painting session, whether it's acrylic or in this case ink. Oh yeah, I haven't had fun and done something really creative if I don't have paint all over me. Okay, here we go. This is the D2, it's called. So this again is the one that I can use on there's the crook side. So I can use just the very edge to get a line like this. Or I can tilt my hand up and take advantage of the oval on the tip. So let's do O, B, A. Yeah, again, this is just a very rounded, it's just a very rounded look to it. Okay, so it's similar, very similar to the B. It's just oval instead of round. I like the round ones more myself. I find it's just a little more exciting. But I haven't put the D to the test, right? I haven't sat here and done lots and lots and lots of work with the D size, so I couldn't tell you. Maybe I'll fall in love with the D size too. That I'm sure they all have their charm, right? Okay, so this is going to come out of here and go back into here. This just pops right in. You can see on the back there. It'll just pop right in there. Okay. That is it for the workshop. Does anyone have any questions before? Well, let me get this going, which was the giveaway. And here, let me move this out of the way so I can put the giveaway there. Oh, you know what? We're not quite done because we didn't go back to this one. Okay. Now, I have so much paint on my hands. I'm trying not to get paint on the other thing there. Let me go back to my favorite one here. It looks like that. Oh, Crazy Junk Art says, great lesson. Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, see, I left this in there. I don't want to leave this in the water for too long because even though this wood is shellacked, it could still split, right? If it's sitting in the water. So there we go. Inside there, that one's cleaned out. Let me go back to my favorite nib here. It gives me a thin line, but not too thin. And dip that in there. And then I'm going to put some color in here or some lines in here. So this is where I would come back in and just do my detail with these skinnier lines like that. And maybe build some, write some words like what garden. Like that. So that's what I would do with this nib, which is sort of a good all-around nib for writing and for doing detail work coming in. And maybe one of these will go like this. Oh, see, it's already started to come to finish. Woo. And then just do a lot of detail on this side right here. Like that. So it's really fun to go back over top of your dry watercolor and do something like that. Okay, let's go ahead and I will get the giveaway going. All right, yeah. So as you can see in the giveaway, which should be running, right? Yep. Let me try not to get black all over your card, whoever's going to win it. So here, this process I was just showing you here with this one is exactly what I did with this one. And that is the giveaway running? Yes. And that is, I put down watercolor first. So I created those little watercolor areas in the background. And then after the watercolor was dry, I went on top with my, first my thick dip pen for the outside, and then my skinny dip pen for the inside details. And then I came in also with a gold pen. So I use this Signo gold pen, but you could also, there is gold ink from Bombay, has gold ink, and you can use that gold ink on here as well. I just happened to use this Signo pen instead and went in and put in gold detailing. So let me see if you can see the gold detailing there. Woo! Nice. Okay. And I will be going back in and finishing this, and this will become a an item that I will use on a card. Now, what I can see already that with this one, likely after I do the leaves, I will spray it with a fixative and then do a little bit of collage on top. So let me show you my fixatives. And before I get more black ink on me, let me cover this up. I am like covered in black ink. Okay, so whenever I have watercolor or I'm working with pastels, soft pastels or dry pastels, then I use this fixative called the Degas fixative by Spectrafix. And I do this for 1 or 2 coats to just lock in the surface. And then once the surface is locked in, I go and I put a layer of this crystal clear acrylic. So it says right here, acrylic coating. And it's a crystal clear acrylic coating. And the reason I do that is I lock in the surface here. And then I can use acrylic paints and do my collage on top of this watercolor. And then the watercolor won't lift back out. Sometimes, depending on the watercolor, if the watercolor is thick, sometimes it will lift back out, and I have to do many, many layers of my sealant first. But for this, which is just very washy, meaning there's not a lot of color in there, I'll only need probably 1 layer of the Degas fixative. Sometimes I'll do 2. And then 3 layers of the crystal clear. And the Degas fixative you can do in your studio because it's non-toxic. It's cow milk casein based. And it doesn't have a heavy odor, and you can use it in your studio. But when you're using a spray like this, the crystal clear acrylic coating, you need to do this outside because it is stinky, stinky, stinky. And I leave about 20 minutes, half an hour in between each layer of the crystal clear. And I leave about 15 minutes in between each layer of the Degas. Yes, it's strong, right, Salmon's Girl? Because this is a clear acrylic coating that you can use on all kinds of stuff. You could use this on any sort of craft item that you were working on to seal it with an acrylic coating. So you can find this on my website, like I said, under the supply links, and search through there, and you'll find the spray fixatives. Okay, let's go ahead and get started for the auction part of the show. Woo! Let's see. Hey there, Turk One. I use it a lot. Okay, see, you know, Salmon's Girl. It is dang well stinky. And I usually will leave it to dry the piece. I'll leave it outside for a while, sometimes overnight, because man, it can get overwhelming otherwise. Okay, you know what? There is one more thing that I didn't show y'all yet, which was working on the black paper, right? With the white. Okay, so I am going to do that real quick. So this is dipping up the pen into the white, and in this case, I'm going to dip it right into here. Oh, yeah. All right, and I'm going to do the bad thing, and I'm going to dip right into here. So let's just dip right into there and fill that up. Now, what I found sometimes with the whites in particular, that sometimes the white can be very thick and it doesn't want to come off of your pen very well. There we go. Oh. There we go. Okay, who won? Who won? Who won? Who won the Givey? Because it looks like it ran and I didn't see it. Who won the Givey? Oh, Salmon's Girl, you won again? Okay, so you're getting that and you're getting the tags. All right, sent to you. Okay, so here the white is working. But like I said, even when I've used what's supposed to be India ink white, and then I come back later and I put a little bit of water over top of it, I have had it bleed before. So H E L, let's see. Right. So this one, it's not very white. So I probably need to use the pen white. These are both from Doc P.H. Martin's. Where did I put the lid to that one? This one right here. So yeah, it's white, but it's not, you can see on the black, it's not as concentrated. So congrats, Salmon's Girl. So this is the pen white, which is supposed to be for pens. This is so thick. I'm telling y'all, this is like super thick, which can be a problem because it wants to stick to the pen and it doesn't always want to come off. Let's try Believe again. So I'm holding it at an angle like this instead of to the paper like this. So here is B, E, L. Yeah, it's having trouble coming off of there. What I've done before with this pen white is I find with a dip pen, the pen white is a little thick and it's looking like this India ink white is a little thin. So you can actually take one of these little cups and blend them together and get the right thickness, or put some of the pen white in one of the little containers with just a few drops of water, and then it'll be the right thickness to come off of your pen correctly.